Hello and welcome back to Spriteguard Plays HyperRogue. We are continuing on to take on the lands that I find difficult and trying to see if we can figure out some strategies for them. And so we have the opportunity right here to try out the Dead Cave. This is one of the areas that I find the most difficult because it's so restricted and there's just so few choices in where you can go. And one of the things we're going to be doing is kind of trying to look for the options that we do have, because we do actually have more options than it immediately seems like because of the hyperbolic geometry. That actually gives us a lot of kind of branching passages. I was reading on Zeno's blog recently. He's been doing this series on kind of the origins of the different lands. It's really interesting. I will link it in the description. And I only just found out about it, but I was reading it, really enjoying it. And one of the things he talked about was kind of the history of the Dead Cave, of kind of the idea of having a maze in the game, and kind of the main conflict, the main reason that it hadn't worked in the past was that in this game, if there is a monster coming up toward you, you can kind of put yourself in a dead end and just kind of fight them off indefinitely, and you won't be in very much danger because, like, here, seeps can get to us pretty easily, and that was actually part of the solution. But if we stand here, and if we just had trolls getting to us, there's only one cell that they can attack from, and so we can just wait for them. And so, he wanted to make sure that there was still some danger, there was still some, one of the things he talked about was that the Icy Land was born out of that same problem, and that he had the idea of having the walls melt if you stand against them. And so that was how he solved the problem of camping. And for the Dry Forest, that was another attempt to have kind of a maze level, but that had the fires to keep you moving. But it also had you could cut down the trees, which made it kind of less of a maze. And then he had some kind of maze-like areas like the Emerald Mine, which is a really kind of straightforward grid, but still has kind of that sense of being a little bit trapped, a little bit lost, though the regularity of it makes it a bit easier. But that's another area where I really feel like I'm trying to find my way through a maze. And of course, the Palace with the Doors and Switches mazes is really interesting as well. And he talked a little bit about the background of that. It was really interesting reading these, kind of seeing what things I was right about and what things I was wrong about when I was guessing kind of the origins of this. A lot of stuff I just knew, I recognized from certain pop culture things that I knew about that, oh dear, let's see. Tactics have taken over my mind. There were some things where I knew about something that was then referenced by often Deadly Rooms of Death. And then, so it was this chain of references when I knew about the original reference. The one that I was most surprised about was actually finding out that the Whirlpool has nothing to do with the Poe story Into the Maelstrom. And the reason that I had thought that was because there are so many H.P. Lovecraft references in this game. but I've gotten on quite a tangent. So the dead cave, the idea is that there are seeps moving through the walls, so you can't camp in a corner. There are also the earth elementals. Oh dear. Let's see. I'm going to step away from that wall. And then, let's see. Okay, so these trolls coming up to me, I need to make sure that they don't both get to me at the same time. And so I believe if I step one space to the right, I will do that. There we go. And that's that managed. Now I want to deal with these seeps before this dark troll gets to me, but it's, dark troll. But it's getting pretty close, so I want to actually back away again, and this wall so far has no seeps in it. So I'm feeling alright there. Now I actually want to clear this wall of seeps, or at least see if I can. And I need to be checking the edges of the screen for any threats coming from anywhere else. And we're attracting another seep from over here, and another dark troll. And they leave rubble behind, which doesn't block your way, which I'm not sure what effect that has if you bring light into the dead cave, but that would be interesting. My guess is that they count as wall cells. So the Orb of Digging is kind of the way that, or the Orb of Earth. I still call it by the old name. The Orb of Earth is one of the kind of the more powerful ways of controlling the environment here. And it looks like I can actually escape into the alchemy lab. So the dead cave has the seeps. It also has the earth elementals, which they will break right through the walls and kind of change the landscape. And so those work together to make camping not really viable. Another thing that I was a little bit surprised about was in the alchemy lab, and I actually want to check, do we have elixirs of life? I don't think so. In the alchemy lab, the elixirs of life are colorless. They don't, you can step onto them from any color. And I had always assumed that that was to make the game a little bit more fair, make it a little bit easier to pick stuff up, because it would be pretty frustrating if there was one right next to you and you couldn't step onto it. And I found out that it was a much more practical kind of technological issue with the very early versions of this game. And so it was really interesting reading these posts and kind of getting a sense for what shaped the game, where I had guessed right, where I had guessed wrong. And I think we're going to be able to escape into this crossroads. Yes. Yes, we are. Great. So we have made it out of the Dead Cave and the Alchemy Lab, and I actually do want to see if we can, without too much fuss, grab up the last few elixirs. We just need 2 more. Unfortunately, it looks like this blue one is going to get to us first. But we can step away from the blue slime, and that way it will stop, and we can kite this red one. We can make a bridge there, and that will let us get the last 2 that we need without attracting that blue slime anymore. So that's the Alchemy Lab is an area that I've always considered relatively safe, relatively easy. We haven't been there in a long time, kind of for a lot of the same reasons that we haven't been to a lot of the lands. That it doesn't have that much appealing in it. It doesn't have that much that I see as very valuable. and it's not that challenging, and so I don't have any really compelling reason to go in there very often, but that was how we managed to escape from the Dead Cave, which is an area that I find very difficult. So we have made it out of a lot of the most dangerous areas in the game. We still have the 2 areas that I consider the most difficult. That is the Whirlpool and the... well, my mind's blanking on me now. I know that the Whirlpool I find... oh, the Zebra I find incredibly difficult for reasons I don't completely understand. And we actually have an Orb of Freedom. The Rose Garden, of course, is another really big challenge that I'm not really sure how to take on yet. That will be something that we will take on in the future at some point. Another thing that I really want to work on is we're very close to 200 treasures, and so I want to see, is there anything, any kind of low-hanging fruit that we can get? Anything that we can grab up that would be useful and that will help us get to that 200 threshold. And this Orb of Freedom is probably going to run out before it's useful, but we can pick up some flash. What do we have? Ether over there? That sounds very useful. And we have some shielding over there. Shielding I never pick up because it lasts for so little time. And it may actually help us, you know, briefly through that encounter. And let's see, probably not through this one. I'm hoping that it can kind of help us not use up our flash. And we can get, let's see, Orb of Space. That lets us pick up treasures. That actually could end up being really useful, because that lets us pick up things from afar. And so I'm wondering, what are some things that we can pick up that won't be too dangerous? And I think that picking up some garnets could be very useful. And of course it's based on the square of the distance, so we are going to blow through these charges. There we go, very fast. We blew through them just with 2. And we only have 2. Those are the only 2 that we have picked up. And so it is actually relatively safe to kind of poke our heads in here and see, you know, can we, without getting too far afield, can we pick up a few more? And then kind of look at the question of, can we get to 200? And I think we're going to need quite a few more lands than just this. But my hope is that we don't get too lost, and it's kind of a toss-up whether or not that ends up happening. We are very likely to get completely lost. And like, if I just turn around now and try and retrace my steps as well as I can, pretty quickly here we get to a big old branch point, and you know, we can kind of look down each of them and say, you know, does any of these look like the way home? None of them particularly does. And it looks like we have all of the garnets that we need, so we don't want to pick up any more. It's going to just make it more dangerous. Now, we can't boat out of here, because we have the water elemental spawning, and it's just too dangerous. I mean, what we can do is we can try and wait for a water elemental and see if we can kind of kite it over to some place, and then hope that we can get a rock troll. And that, unfortunately, was a pretty bad place to kill it. And it's not really clear whether or not we're going to actually see a rock troll. And we probably would need several to get it where it was, because what I should have done was kind of pull it out into, make a really narrow channel by kiting the water elemental. And instead it's buried deep in the wall, and so we can't really make bridges. So here's one now, and I think right about here was more or less where we wanted to look. And so, yeah, it looks like that has not been enough. We would need another one. And that one is on the wrong side of the water. I don't think he has any way of getting to us. We have an overgrown woods here. We have a little bit of a better placement with this water elemental. And now we actually have two after us, which is a problem. And they may actually end up cutting us off from this overgrown woods, which is a little bit disappointing, but we don't really need to... it's not absolutely unnecessary. Those orbs of the fish would be really nice, but we can't get to them in any really safe way. And, you know, I can try and kite this guy over here. I don't think it'll be enough, though. It's not quite enough, and the land is getting eroded away. And what I did do is I beached that boat, so now we're not actually able to get it into the water. And so we're kind of not any better off than we were to begin with. And I don't want to get in a boat unless I have a really clear plan of where I'm going. You know, if it was this boat right here, I could go 1, 2, grab the orb of the fish, and that would be where I want to go. But instead, we are pretty much lost and wandering. We do have 11 ice diamonds, and so getting up to 25 is something that I've done many times before. It is something that I would like to see if we can do again. I feel pretty confident, and this is shaping up to be a little bit of a longer episode than I planned, but I am totally okay with that. We are getting a lot of stuff done and having quite an adventure. I am really enjoying it, and we're really kind of doing a lot of different stuff today. I'm really enjoying that. And so my hope is that we can get to 200 today, but we may end up getting to a point where it's just there's not any really feasible way of doing that. Now, let's see, we're at 19, so we need 6 more. I would like to keep this Crossroads in view, but it's not really certain that we'll be able to do that. The treasure spawning rules are, I think as long as we're in the icy land, we'll be fine. But when we're on the border like that, treasures can despawn. I think only if we go into the Crossroads, but I'm not 100% sure. Let's see, we can get 3 more here. And then that'll get us to 25. So now I would like to see if we can follow our heat trail. And unfortunately, because the Icy Land glitch was patched, our heat trail becomes invisible almost immediately. Heat dissipates very quickly in hyperbolic geometry. And so let's see, what is this? Is this an Ivory Tower? It is. That's not someplace I want to go. The Ivory Tower, I believe, only has 1 border. And so it's not really someplace that we can escape through. The Icy Land, you know, it's pretty dangerous because we have those 25 treasures. But it's one of the safer lands. It's one of the easier lands to traverse. We have orbs of flash appearing. And we now have an opportunity to get demon daisies. And I just want to make sure that we don't already have them, and I don't see it there. So let us head into here. I believe Demon Daisy is from Adom, a game which it's way up there in my list of games that I kind of wish I liked. It is a really immense roguelike. One of the very long ones with a huge world. And just a lot of complexity. More complexity than I can really deal with. And it has a lot of kind of old-feeling game design that kind of puts me off of it a little bit. But it's a game that I have tremendous respect for, even though I don't find it particularly fun to play, and I have gotten myself cornered here. This is quite bad, but I think we can escape this way. And it looks like we have a crossroads right here. We still need 4 more demon daisies, though. The hell I found out in this series of blog posts was actually created kind of as a parody of leveling up mechanics, because this game doesn't really have a leveling up mechanic. And so he kind of talked a bit about exactly what happened here is when you kill 10 lesser demons, you kind of level up, and all that does is it turns all of the greater demons on screen into lesser demons. But greater demons still spawn at the same rate. And once again, we have lost track of our exit because we got a little bit wrapped up in combat. And here actually is a Crossroads Type 3, so we can just slip into here. And it always feels like orbs are a little hard to come by here, but hopefully we can find an orb of safety and wrap this up. So I really like that it kind of pokes fun at that whole idea of no matter how much you level up, the game's difficulty doesn't change, because the monsters just level up every time you do. And so in Hell, that's really what happens, and it happens kind of so subtly that it can really just feel exactly like nothing is happening at all. And so I think that's a neat little idea in this game. One of the many things that I like about it. Let's see if Flash can deal with skeletons. It can. Continuing to be one of the most useful orbs in the game. The Land of Power is not actually a land, since it's here, I'm kind of thinking of it, not actually a land that I consider one of the super dangerous, probably going to lose if you go in there lands. It is difficult to get into, but once you're in there, it's dangerous, it's very tactical, you have to think about every move, but you have so many options, and there is a strategy that will get you through it. And so I don't kind of think of it in the same way that I think of the Whirlpool, the Rose Garden, the Zebra, where it really just, I feel like I have no tools for taking them on. I definitely have tools for taking on the Land of Power. It's a really fun land, and I think that it will be on our wandering tour of the world. And we have here our Orb of Safety. We have reached the 200 gem threshold. And so in the next episode, we will be on the lookout for a Crossroads Type 4. Very interesting land that was added in I believe the most recent major update. I was going to say most recent patch, but there have been a lot of patches since then, just fixing things, because Xeno is an amazing developer and really on top of this game. Really admiring the work that he has put into it. Still enjoying this game hundreds of hours later. And we have one of the more exciting new additions to the game coming up hopefully in the next episode, though it kind of depends how long it takes us to find it. Now that we are able to generate it, but that is coming up. Until then, thank you very much for watching, and have a great rest of your day.